Because I think a good evangelist can walk into a room and start talking, and people are going to pay attention. You have the ability to talk CISO to CISO or security executive to security executive, right? One of the ways that you can get security leaders to pay attention is they know that you've walked in their shoes before. I've literally kind of seen the face and the conversation change when I introduce myself and they realize I'm not an SE or a seller, like I'm a practitioner.
One of the things that you mentioned was adding value. I feel like that is critical to me to building relationships with cybersecurity professionals. I will admit, I am in marketing. I'm in marketing, everyone. Sorry, don't hold it against me. I'll take part in your self-deprecating jokes. I get it. I understand. But even me, like, I feel like something that I've learned being in the industry for several years is that people don't want to hear you hawking your product. Like they want help. And one of the things that I've noticed about executives specifically, CISOs, VPs and above, is I feel like there are so many unknowns and uncertainties in cybersecurity. And a lot of times they're left wondering, is this just me? Am I alone in this? And so having a partner like you, Tim, or somebody else come alongside them, speak their language and say, no, I'm talking with a lot of people. Like these are things that people are commonly struggling with. These are solutions that people are finding. Again, that's value. That's value.
Hey, this is Dave Johnson.
And I'm Tyler Zito.
Welcome to the Job Security Podcast. We're here to explore the unique perspectives and stories of the people who make this industry what it is, whether they realize it or not. Tech evangelism is a multifaceted role, often mysterious and difficult to break into. And although evangelists themselves are notoriously difficult to capture on film, we managed to find one to answer our inane questions about the role today. Tim Chase is with us. He's been working in information security for over 20 years in many different roles, including leading cybersecurity teams focused on cloud and AppSec. He's an extensive experience working at the board and executive level to promote security and guide decision-making. Over the last few years, he's been focusing his efforts on DevSecOps and the intersection of AppSec, DevOps, and cloud. He's presented at multiple conferences on this topic, including RSA and ISSA InfoSec. In addition to this, he's a LinkedIn training author where he has training to help build DevSecOps into the development pipeline. Tim, thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for the invite. I look forward to it.
And somebody else I want to intro to the job security show today, Ben Baker, normally behind the scenes, behind the curtain, handling all of the production stuff. Ben is here today to help us host the show. And Ben, say hi to the people.
I'm saying hello to the people. Hello, people. I'm excited about this show today. I'm going to be helping with this episode because me and Tim Chase have worked together in a prior life. Consider Tim a friend and fellow fan of SEC football, which is a good thing and a bad thing, I guess, depending on how you look at it. So, anyways, Tim, we wanted to bring you on. The whole purpose of the Job Security Podcast is to have people on in different facets of security industry to talk about cybersecurity from different angles. Some of these people are within the industry, even some people outside of the industry that are shaping the industry in different ways. Obviously, you have a really unique perspective being a tech evangelist, and obviously in the role that you're currently in with Orca Security and in previous roles you've had as well. Let's start with the basics here. How would you define a tech evangelism, and what does a tech evangelist actually do day to day?
That's the question that my wife asked me as well, to be honest. She has no idea what I do. But, a lot of what I do is just talk about tech, right? And so I spend a lot of time obviously talking about Orca, but really just talking about what I see in the cybersecurity industry. I think one of the things that I try and do is just evangelism in general, right? Obviously, I work for Orca. I talk about cloud security in general, but I like to talk about different topics that are affecting our entire cybersecurity industry, whether it's AI, cloud security, container security, regulation, whatever it happens to be. So a tech evangelist to me is just someone that sees what's going on in the industry. They've got kind of the history. They've been in it long enough that they can really kind of educate others, whether that's through doing podcasts, writing blogs, meeting with customers to tell them kind of what you're seeing and where they should be focused. And that's really at a high level what tech evangelism is. At a practical level, it's kind of a mix of you kind of get stuck in between marketing, sales, and product. If you really want to kind of get it down into what it looks like inside of an organization. And so, because you spend a lot of your time obviously doing marketing, right? So you're talking, writing, reading, all of that. But at the same time, like, you should really be taking what you learn and helping make sure that that gets into your product, right? Because you want to make sure that from a product perspective, you want to be where the industry is going. You want to be leading the industry. And that's where so you want to take everything that you learn and make sure that feeds into the product, right? So, and then whatever the product is doing from a roadmap perspective, that needs to come back to you. So there's kind of an integration there. And then also on the sales side, right? There's obviously an impact there of, you can deliver the roadmap. You can really speak to where what customers are feeling and the problems they're facing and how to solve those problems. And so you can kind of be a resource for maybe those getting started in cloud security or those getting started in security in general, and help point them in the right direction.
It's really it's interesting. It's a content flywheel in a way. It seems like just like what you said, you are having to stay on top of kind of the hottest trends in the market, which feed into conversations on the front lines with the sales team. But then those conversations go back to your product team. Your product team is iterating on the product based on what you've heard in conversations, which are sparked by what you're seeing in the news and in technology. And it's just like this. And then on top of that too, in your bio, we talked about your LinkedIn training courses. I would assume that some of the studying that you're doing for those LinkedIn training courses are also feeding into the work that you're doing as a tech evangelist. I mean,
Yeah.
it seems like it all feeds into each other, does it not?
It all feeds into each other. I mean, one of my last courses on metrics, and the reason that I could write that is obviously I've been in the CISO role, so I understand what metrics I report to the leaders and to the board. But that's one of the questions that I talk a lot about with the executives is like, how do you measure security? How do you measure risk? How do you quantify it? And so I was able to take that and kind of make it into a course, which is always fun. It's part of the education, because I like to learn and I like to teach others what I've learned.
Yeah. You must also be a really patient person to be dealing with sales and marketing teams as much as you are. If you sit at the intersection of those teams,
It's really interesting because I feel like I'm a good mix of sales and marketing, right? It's like I like talking and I like doing the selling part. But then the marketing folks are extremely creative, and that's not always my forte. Like, I depend on others to like think outside the box, and I'm pretty good at delivering a message, understanding the message, and delivering it. But like, if you want me to come up with some sort of a campaign or anything like that, like, it takes a little bit more brain power for me to ideate. So I'm kind of a good mixture it's a good role for me because I'm a good mixture of sales and marketing, just from a person perspective.
So when you're when you're thinking about promoting concepts either internally or externally, what philosophies are you deploying to kind of help you structure those in a way that's consumable or motivating? Like, do you have specific core fundamental philosophies that you leverage as your guiding principles here, or I mean, even just uh, good old fashioned rules? Like, how do you kind of stay focused in a particular area?
Very heady question. I would say that one of the things that I do is try and draw upon my own experience, right? So when I write, when I read, whatever, I really try and say, this is what I did when I was a CISO, right? I think one of the good things about being a field CISO, tech evangelist, is the fact that I've been there before and I can draw on my own experience. So I always try and put myself in the shoes of the person that I'm talking to, right? Um, and that's one thing. And I think the other core principle is that I always listen. As I don't have all the answers. I definitely have perspectives, but everybody is unique. And so just because if I go into a customer site and just give the same message every time, it may not resonate because they're at different places in their security journey. And I think it really, especially like in cloud security, if I were to plot a path for everyone to be successful in cloud security, it may not be the same for everybody, right? If I go into some place and try and use my knowledge and say, this is how you build a cloud security program, but they're happy with their vulnerability management program, but they want to focus on runtime. And I don't hear kind of what they're saying to me. I think I would be successful. So, just trying to always listen as much as I talk, and then just speaking um, from a layer of experience. Like I just wrote a blog that hopefully will go live in the next couple of weeks of how to build a cloud security program, and I walk through like the 5 steps of what I have done in the past as I've built out a cloud security program. But I do make it. I even kind of weave it in there the fact like this can change depending on where you're at. So don't take this as like 100% the gospel, right? And so I think those are just a couple of the ways that I always approach whatever I do, whether it's talking or writing.
So what I heard was was drawn previous experience having done that job. Put yourself in the shoes of the people who are asking the questions and embody that role for a moment and inhabit it and go, okay, putting myself back in the position where I was basically you. Here are the things I cared about. So therefore, answering your question in this way, here's what I would do.
Yeah.
And then ask questions before prescribing, which any good physician does. So yeah, that makes sense.
Let me say, Tim, once that blog goes live, if it's live by the time this podcast gets on the interwebs, we'll link that in the show notes. Would love, I'm sure people would find that really helpful. It is ironic to me that one of the primary responsibilities of an evangelist is to listen, because I think a lot of times when you think about evangelism, it's speaking, but it sounds to me, Tim, based on what you just said, that listening is just as important as speaking for a tech evangelist.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
that's
it
interesting.
is in multiple ways, right? It is just from a learning perspective, because the one thing that I like about this role and about cybersecurity in general is that you never stop learning, right? Like, I'm not the type of person that likes to do the same thing over and over again, day in and day out, year again after year. Like that's perfectly fine. My wife, I love her. She's been a nurse practitioner for over 20 years, and she goes in, she cares for patients, and that's what she likes to do. I'm wired differently, and I like to constantly be learning. I like to be challenging myself, challenging kind of the thought processes that are out there. So to me, the way that you do that is obviously by listening to what's going on in the industry, and also by listening to others who are currently working in it and fighting those battles.
Yeah, that's great. Let's dig into your history and your let's dig into your history, Tim. Let's dig into your job history here. As you said, you've sat in the seat, right? You've sat in the seat of the analyst. You've been a CISO. I know that, like we just said, you work at Orca Security currently, and you've actually led companies on that cloud migration journey. So you know the pains.
Yeah.
Like you said, you know how one size doesn't fit all. And so walk us through your journey into tech evangelism. How did you end up there? Was this an intentional decision? Did you kind of stumble into it? How did that happen?
Yeah, I stumble into it a little bit. Like I'm the type of person that always likes to have a plan of what's next. And so like I could tell you right now, I won't, but I could tell you like what my next 2 steps I would like to be. Right. And
President of the United States.
President of the United States. That's 3 steps away, man. You jumped a little bit. But and so like going all the way back, what I will tell you is I had an interest in cybersecurity almost straight out of college. And at that time, because I'm getting up there, as you can see from the gray hairs in my beard, there wasn't a lot of automation, right? I know I look 25. You can say
Yeah,
it.
I don't believe you,
You don't
Tim.
believe it.
I don't believe you.
Can you put us in the era a little bit so we know kind of like era of technology and cyber?
Yeah. It was '02. So '02
Okay.
is really when I started in the industry. And when we were starting, like it was still the era where CISO was not an overly common role. And so the company that I was working at had gotten their first CISO, and I was like, well, that sounds pretty cool. And so in addition to like the manual testing and performance testing that I was doing, I just asked if I could do some security testing, like some, manual just like you would think, like bringing up a proxy, modifying the payloads, sending the payloads in, and trying to do kind of the standard cross-site scripting, SQL injection, all of that, right? Because we didn't have the automated tools. They weren't quite as common back then. And then from a CISO perspective, they were really focused on risk. They were focused on IPS, IDS, all of those technologies, not as much AppSec yet. So I did that. And I started to do that, and I just kept on doing that kind of as a side gig in my career. And then when I went to Nielsen, the ratings company, they brought me over there to do some performance testing, but I said, I will only come work for you if you also allow me to do security testing, because that's really where my heart is at. So I made that kind of, just on the back of a napkin deal with my manager at the time, and it worked. And so I finished the project that I was on, it was a Nielsen Facebook combination project. And then after that, as a part of that project, I convinced them to buy Fortify, if you guys have been around for a little while, to do the application security testing. And then before I knew it, I was owning AppSec for the entire company. And then I was running security for that particular, it's called Buy at the time. Now it's Nielsen IQ. And I was running security for them, managing the quality scans, risk assessments, AppSec, all of that.
I was
Go
gonna
ahead.
just to pause. I was gonna ask you, what tools were you using at the time to do pen testing? I don't remember Fortify, but I should.
Well, it was even before like Burp. I'm sure it was probably like Zap or something along those lines. I'm having a hard time remembering which proxy tool I use, but I'm sure it was like Zap or something like that, where you just capture it, modify it before you send it back. Because that was a long time ago, and I really can't remember what I even had for lunch, to be honest with you. So
Like we're talking Wireshark days. We're talking
yeah,
like right after Y2K,
right,
and
exactly.
think we were still recovering from that.
Yes, you're exactly right. We're still recovering from that. The COBOL programmers were on an island somewhere from all the money they made at the time.
I still know one, so if you know anybody who needs one, I can put you direct contact with a COBOL programmer.
Does he come? Does he come with his own green printer that can print the green code? I used to do that when I was building COBOL.
I can ask her. She's my mother-in-law, so I'm sure she would if she has it, like she'd give me a good deal.
That's funny. Yeah, so Fortify was kind of the first experience that I had with the automated tools, right? Where we had some Java, we had some C++ apps, and that's where we were doing a lot of the security testing. That kept going on, and I developed a team, and I would say I had anywhere from when the team was small, from 3, and then it scaled up to about 52 people, something along those lines.
Wow.
Of onshore offshore mix.
It's a big team.
It is a big team. And then along came cloud, and they needed someone to do that. And obviously I picked that up. And the interesting thing about it, and I'm kind of seeing this in the AI world today, but with cloud, we were investigating Microsoft. And then we were like, this is all that we're going to do. And they're like, cost doesn't matter. We're full in on cloud. That lasted for about a month, when they realized that cost does matter. They were burning $40K a month. And they're like, this is not sustainable. And then another department decided they wanted to do AWS, and that was going to meet their needs. And then another department said they were going to do GCP because they wanted AI, and that met their needs. And before long, within the course of 2 months, we are multi-cloud. That's a fast forward.
We have the multi-cloud, everyone.
It's a fast forward journey of how most organizations these days go, right? Mm-hmm. So that's when I purchased, just to kind of throw out some tools as well. Like that's when I started kind of looking at, like I used evident.io. Luckiest company ever in my book. They got bought by Palo, and then we quickly grew past that because they were only single cloud, really. And then we ended up going with Redlock before they got bought by Palo, along with Twistlock. So kind of owning the whole, at that point, AppSec, CloudSec, ContainerSec vision. And then there's some changes happened at Nielsen, and then we combined the security team. So I ended up owning AppSec and CloudSec globally. Stayed there for a little while longer, then left to work for a company called HealthStream here in Nashville, where I live. And and ran their security program, kind of started their cloud sec, their app sec, did some things around their board reporting. So spent a few years there, just kind of solidifying that program. And then I decided I wanted to do something different, get in the startup world. And that's ultimately, I stayed a little bit at a company called Calibra for a couple of years. And that's really where I got the go-to-market experience. So I had like the practical experience, and then I did field security at Calibra, and that's where I got to do a lot of the, how do you work with sellers? How do sellers sell? I've been sold to for years, and I bought, but little did I know when I called up the vendor, on December 15th and told them that the purchase was not going to make it. I was going to have to wait to January 2nd, that I've screwed their entire forecast. I didn't know that really until you got into the seller seat and you're like, oh man, that's probably my bad on that one. I probably should realize that I impacted their bonus, their commission. But I started to just kind of understand those processes and that what makes a good seller, bad seller, how to talk to customers. And then I went on to lace work I was there for 3 years, actually, to the day. So from the
How
day
about
that I
that?
started until the day that Fortinet kind of acquired them and the acquisition was complete. I know. And they rest in peace.
That's
Uh,
right.
it was 3 years to the day that I was at Lacework. And I ran their field CISO team. So we had a combination of 8 of us, kind of scattered, 8.5, because we had to have resource in Australia, around the world, that were doing either field CISO, field CTO work, talking, writing, evangelizing, and all that. And then after that, I spent a little bit of time at Vesa, doing identity security, but then I had an opportunity at Orca that I couldn't turn down. And I've been here for a while, running their evangelism program. So I say all that to say, like, that's kind of my history and what led me to it. But as you can see, like, the path to it was a little bit convoluted. I didn't set out, but at each stage, it was kind of like, what's my next step? Well, hey, I'd like to work more in the field. I don't want to be a seller because I have kids. I don't want to be out taking people eating and drinking every night. But how can I be a seller but not be a seller? Which, led me to the field CISO, the field security role. And then just the fact that I like to talk and speak and write kind of led me into the evangelizing in the field CISO.
Tom Alcock recently posted on LinkedIn. You commented on this, Tim. Again, link in the show notes. Around what makes evangelism roles work, and you had some thoughts on this post that you shared. Want to double click on that. A couple of things that you said. You mentioned not hiring for connections alone. Can you expand on that? Why does that approach maybe fail? What should companies prioritize instead? What should they look for in tech evangelists?
Sure. So field CISOs, tech evangelists, I've seen the roles kind of come up a lot lately, to the point that there are, LinkedIn groups specifically for field CISOs and tech evangelists. And even sometimes, what I'll say is, when people are hiring for that role, um, one of the hardest things to do is get the attention of a CISO, right? Like, if you think about how many solutions are out there that are trying to sell something, they're trying to build their product, and they're trying to get to the point where the IPO, they can be sold, whatever. Like, they just want to be successful. They want to help customers solve problems, all of the things. And they have a problem getting to the CISO because they're inundated, whether it's by SDRs or LinkedIn or whatever, right? And so the thought that I've seen is that sometimes, when they're hiring for these field CISOs and these evangelist roles, they're looking for people with connections, right? Where hey, look, this guy's got great connections in the CISO world, especially up in the Northeast or whatever. The problem with that, at least from my experience, is um, you can only expect a certain number of those connections to really pan out, because I think once you go over to the what they consider like the sales world, um, they don't always pick up the phone the same way that you would expect them to, right? Because they know that you're trying to sell them a product. They look at you more as sales now, and so, um, it becomes a challenge, and I've seen this happen where maybe it works for 6 months, 9 months, something along those lines, but ultimately, um, those connections they dry up, right? And the way to make connections properly is to help them solve problems. Sellers can make really good connections. I've got some sales guys that I've worked with for years that I could text right now. It's because I know they want to help me solve a problem, and so I think the sellers can make relationships just as well. So I would just caution, like, for people that are hiring for those roles, like, that's not the most important thing. I think the one of the most important things is someone who is a good communicator, um, and I would say broadly, but also to the executive level. Um, this is
Yeah,
where
because one of the things that you mentioned in that post as well is like executive presence. I think
Mhm.
that's kind of what you spoke to.
Yeah,
That's kind of
yeah.
what you're getting to here?
Well, the executive presence, because I think a good evangelist um, can walk into a room and start talking, and people are going to pay attention. You have the ability to talk CISO to CISO, or security executive to security executive, right? One of the ways that you can get security leaders to pay attention is if they know that you've walked in their shoes before, right?
Hmm.
I've literally kind of seen the face and the conversation change when I introduce myself and they realize I'm not an NSE or a seller, like I'm a practitioner. Then they can understand and we can talk. And it, and we can kind of go from there, right? And so I think having that executive presence just really helps, to be able to make an impact, because ultimately the goal to me, a lot of times the field CISOs, the tech evangelists, they're meant to sell to that higher level. They're meant to sell to the executives and and speak their language. And so I think that's super important. I do also think it's important to be able to speak to the lower level. And I'm not saying you have to be the most technical person in the world where you have to be able to script a Python script or anything like that. But being able to talk to somebody who's trying to build a cloud security program in a way that they can understand, or an application security program in a way they can understand, is important, right? And so I think just being an overall good communicator is good, but definitely having the executive presence to get up on stage, be on a panel, all of that is essential.
It's interesting. One of the things that you mentioned in that answer that you just gave was adding value. I feel like that is critical to me to building relationships with cybersecurity professionals. I will admit I am in marketing. I'm in marketing, everyone. Sorry, don't hold it against me. I'll take part in your self-deprecating jokes. I get it. I understand. But even me, like I feel like something that I've learned being in the industry for several years is that people don't want to hear you hawking your product. Like they want help. And one of the things that I've noticed about executives, specifically CISOs, VPs and above, is uh I feel like there are so many unknowns and uncertainties in cybersecurity, and a lot of times they're left wondering, is this just me? Am I alone in this? And so having a partner like you, Tim, or somebody else come alongside them, speak their language, and say, "No, I'm talking with a lot of people. Like, these are things that people are commonly struggling with. These are solutions that people are finding." Again, that's value. That's value. One of the things that I've seen you do, Tim, is specifically working together at Laceward, God rest in peace, is you coach your teams on that. I remember specifically moments where you were shielding against being too heavy plugging the product in favor of, no, I'm here just to build a relationship. Like I want to build a relationship. And it sounds like that's critical for this role that we're speaking to today.
Yeah, it's critical in whatever I do. So if I get on and I'm on a sales call, like I'm going to talk about how I can solve that. I'm going to listen and I'm going to help understand what problem they're facing. And if I'm going to talk about the product, I'm going to talk about how we can help you solve the problem that you're facing. Right. I'm not going to pitch every single feature that Orca can do, but if I'm hearing, man, I'm really having a problem understanding my risk remediation. Well, let me just show you the 6 ways that we can help you filter and really get to the root of your problem to fix what you need to. Right. And I do it when I write as well. So, um, if you look at the blogs that I've written, I'll mention at the bottom, like, hey, this is probably something we can help you with. But 95% of the blog is about let's talk about AI security. Let's talk about what that means, and break it down so that you can understand it. Oh, and by the way, like if you want to talk about that, like here's how you can get a hold of us, right? And I don't like to I know I'm an evangelist, and ultimately, like, I want people to know about Orca, but at the same time, like, I think that positioning myself, positioning our company as thought leaders, will put us in the spot that we want to be in anyway, right? Ultimately, the goal is to make Orca more well known. Like whatever company you're working for, whatever company you're an evangelist for, a big part of what you're trying to do is make the company more well known and people to think about these people know what they're talking about, right? And so that to me is more. And if you do that and you elevate um, the company as a thought leader, then I think getting the name out there I think that the sales will come, if that makes sense. And that's the way that I like position myself. Because if I position myself as a sale, like we got enough sellers, right? The sellers can, I always say, let the sellers sell and let me evangelize, right? They've got their process and they're respected and they're known for what they do. But let me just, talk about the problem.
Yeah, I like that. I like that.
One of the things that I've subscribed to for a very long period of time is that whatever company I work at, I try to promote, or I guess evangelize internally, the value of providing something of value to the community by just nature of existence without asking anything in return. And that positions you to be in a place where you can hear stuff that people care about in a more transparent approach or more candid way. It allows you to be part of conversations that may be more thought leadery, or they might help you think about your existing product in a way that you hadn't before. Like you mentioned earlier, you're not just pitching your product. You're talking about things that the cybersecurity community could be doing to be better, or like people who are responsible for it at the very least. But you're also listening, you're hearing what people are saying, and you're taking that back to your business and going like, this is what people want, or these are the things that maybe we should be communicating better about what we're doing. One thought I had when you were mentioning that in this LinkedIn discussion, when you're basically offering a rebuttal, like, hey, it's great and all to have a lot of connections, but it's a very limited pool of people that person may be relying on. Is that potentially a detractor for you if you were interviewing somebody for an evangelism role, or even maybe a field CISO role? Is there a good way for you to tell like the difference between them generating lots of new relationships continuously and just happening to have a bunch? Or is there a way for you to quantify, hey, they've been relying on the same like 20 people forever and they're never going to get more sales out of them because they've oversold to them and taxed those relationships already?
Yep. So soft skills and hard skills. So like when I'm interviewing somebody, probably shouldn't say this, but like you want to see how they react and how they talk, right? Because I think that if you can relate to them and they come off as relatable, they come off as friendly, I think you can get an understanding of like how they would approach being with CISOs or executives. Like I've interviewed people for the role before, and I could just tell that they would grade other executives wrong, or the wrong way, right? Like because they come off as condescending, they come off as maybe not liking sales folks. I actually had one guy say he didn't like sales, and I'm like, that 25% of your job is working with sellers, right? Like
that's a problem.
That's a problem. So like you can tell from a soft skills perspective, like are they going to be able to generate these relationships? Are they relatable? From a hard skills perspective, you can ask them what they would do, right? Like how would you, you don't really know a lot of folks maybe in Washington, or maybe you don't know a lot of folks in the medical field. What could we do to generate some interest there, right? What would you do to maybe meet some more people? And there's a lot of different answers you can give. Like I had that question one time for a job, and I was talking about leveraging the CSA, like what a great relationship they are, because you got these CSA relationships in all of these major cities, and you could just go and sponsor an event, and like there's different ways, and so you can kind of just see what ideas they have and how to build these relationships, right? So it's kind of like from a soft skills perspective, how relatable are they? And you can get a feel for that in an interview. And then the hard skills, like ask them how they would generate it, what their thoughts are. Are they involved in any of these ISSA groups or CSA groups or whatever?
That's good. It's ironic to me that in order to be a good tech evangelist, you don't need to be preachy. That's what it sounds like to me. It's like you don't want to be preachy. You want to be an advisor. You want to advise. You want to partner. You don't want to be preachy, which
That is,
sounds,
that,
again, it's like, to me, again, circling back to a point earlier, it's ironic to me that one of the primary responsibilities of an evangelist would be to listen. So this is why you listen to the podcast, people, to uncover these nuggets of wisdom here. So that's good. That's good. For somebody who's interested in this, potentially pursuing this career path, Tim, maybe CISO, security practitioner, engineer, what's your advice for breaking into this kind of role? Like, what are the kinds of things they could be doing right now? Maybe skills that they could be polishing up or honing or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the best thing you could do is figure out like your medium that you like to communicate best, and just start there. When I ran a team, I had some folks that um, would write, but they didn't like to speak. They would speak, but they weren't great writers. And so, like, I encourage folks, if you're trying to get into this type of field, to just figure out kind of what your gaps are, right? I will say that being able to communicate in some sort of way is important, and I have to do all of them, right? I have to write and talk. And obviously everybody can probably read, but like you have to communicate in all these in all these ways. So I would say stretch yourself, right? Like if you don't like um, talking, then figure out, if you don't like speaking, like figure out how maybe you could get better at it. Maybe instead of going in front of a group, you start by doing a webinar where you're just interviewing somebody or answering questions in a field that you are comfortable with, right? So
Or a podcast.
or a podcast, right? My favorite medium.
There you go.
And then start there. And then like if you don't like, and then the same thing with writing. It's like if you don't think you're good at writing, like you can get better. And I will tell you that, like, I am good at writing. I'm not great at writing, but I've got some people that I work with that are great, that can help and be like, hey, you should word it this way or word it that way. And so I just say, get out there and stretch yourself a little bit. And then I would also say, like, if you like this type of a field and you're wanting to understand it more, if you don't understand how sellers work, you should do some research, right? Because I think that good sellers normally follow um, some sort of a methodology. That doesn't have to be strictly, but like, learning how to ask good discovery questions, learning how to um, to part of when when I get on, I um, I try and ask questions that elicit good responses, not yes, no questions, but and that's an art, right? Sometimes. And so, I would say find, a good seller or two and just get onto their calls and see how they get a customer talking in a way that is not defensive or anything like that. And that's the other side, because there is an art to it, that I'm not a seller. I still haven't perfected, but I know what, makes a good pitch. I know what makes a good seller. And so just, learn the different parts of an evangelist role, and just maybe dig in and just kind of figure out what you don't know, and partner with some folks to help you learn it.
I think that you and I are in strong agreement on that. I wrote a blog, I think last year, titled Do What You're Bad At. And it was very much if there's something you're terrible at, literally hyper focus on that. And there's a ton of room for personal growth as a result, if it's something you're not great at. And as a result, you'll often learn about things you are good at by doing the thing that you don't have a lot of core competency in. And to your other statement about like learn to ask good questions, as you were saying that, I was like, you said, learn how to ask questions that you can't just answer yes or no to. And I immediately thought of my 6-year-old who is
How was school today?
Exactly. That's the worst question to ask.
I ask it all the time.
I do too.
Yeah.
And in response, like she's getting very good at asking why, which is forcing me to explain things in granular detail I haven't maybe had to in a long time. We had to talk about what light was the other day, and I really had to draw on all kinds of things that it's been a while. But there was no yes or no. It was, but why is this a wave or is it a particle? And
That's when
really interesting.
ChatGPT is well worth the $20 a month.
Correct. Just listen to this machine, child. That's right. No, it's true. Also, I will say, Dave, you and I are having different conversations with our children. They have not asked me what light is. Just throwing that out there. I don't know if that says something about my house. I don't 100% know. But.
It's just different. I mean, we still do all the same things, but sometimes physics comes up. I mean,
naturally, of course.
Yeah,
right?
of course. It does. It does. Everything is physics. That's all I'm going to say.
My daughter literally said this morning, "I hate physics. It's the worst subject. This makes no sense." That's how far we've gotten in physics.
There you go. Tim, this has been great. It's been a great conversation. I think there's a lot of practical takeaways for listeners. Before we round it out here, give us some plugs. What are you doing? Plug some of the work that you're doing at Orca. Here at Expel, we integrate with a number of tools and pull them into our platform so that our MDR can keep an eye on others' environments. Orca is one of those tools we integrate with. So, what do you got going on over there at Orca? Anything you want to plug?
Lots of stuff. So obviously, what I would say is that we're working on now is, we are kind of the CNAPP platform, right? We're the independent CNAPP platform where if you want to do your cloud security, you can do it all in Orca. And I say a couple of the things that we're really focused on that maybe people don't really know is how application security integrates into cloud security, right? And I've been saying it for the 2 to 3 years now, those things are more integrated than ever. And so, we've built SCA, SaaS, repo security, all of that into our platform so that it ties into one data model. Because I think when you think about what a good cloud security tool should be, one of the keys is that it has a unified data model where you can extract kind of this data, right? So that you can always query on it. What you're sending to MDR providers. It just makes your life a lot easier to help on the context perspective, not just knowing you've got a vulnerability, but all the information around the vulnerability. The other thing I'll say that we're really focused on, I guess, is, kind of the AI security. And so being able to understand where you're using AI in your organization, what data your AI models are connected to, what roles your AI user and services can undertake, and what permissions they have. Being able to understand all of that's another area that would focus. And you can probably see is, we had our first acquisition called Opus earlier this year around the agentic AI. So just keep an eye on the space for more information there in the future.
Yeah, that's great. One of our most recent podcast guests, actually, Peter Holcomb, is a sort of an AI futurist, cybersecurity background. And one of the topics that we discussed was how to keep AI secure, and sort of like with the cloud. And the conversation we had earlier, whenever the cloud came to be, we kind of threw out all of the fundamentals about cybersecurity that we knew when we really shouldn't have done that. And so in a lot of ways, it seems like we're doing something similar here with AI, and it's like, let's keep the fundamentals, guys. They're there for a reason. So anyways, that's great. Very good. Well, Tim, hey, look, appreciate you, man. Always good to have conversation with you. Thanks for coming in and sharing your expertise with us. Hope some people benefited from the conversation. I'm sure they did.
That was a great conversation. Thanks to you both. Appreciate the talk.
Appreciate it, Tim.
Thanks, Tim.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Job Security Podcast, sponsored by Expel MDR. This podcast was co-hosted by Dave Johnson and Tyler Zito and was produced by me, Ben Baker. If you've enjoyed what you heard today, please consider giving us a glowing 5-star rating and review on your podcast app of choice. And be sure to follow us on YouTube for more cybersecurity content at youtube.com/@expelsecurity. We'll catch you next time.